In this video, we are going to put together some of the bits and pieces of the main activity. So I want to put together the layout, another layout for a dialogue view, and some view holders for our recycler view, and a couple other quick little things. And the reason I'm doing this is you guys have pretty much seen all this stuff before. So the way I'm going to organize putting together the main activity is I'm going to get all of this, all the little ancillary concerns out of the way, all the view holders and the layouts and stuff, get all those done so that when we get to the actual main activity class, we can just straight up write that and focus on the implementation of that without having to jump around everywhere. So I guess let's go ahead and get started. I'm going to jump into my resource folder, jump into my layout folder, and I'm going to locate my activity main. And inside of here, the first thing I'm going to do is, I guess, nuke this text view, because we're obviously not going to have a text view saying hello world in our production application. And I'm also going to go ahead and I'm going to change this linear layout to a relative layout, and we'll see why I did that here in a second. And then in addition to that, I'm going to give this include an ID of include toolbar. I'm doing this so I can reference this ID inside of this file and so that it gets picked up by your existing code. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to do something interesting here that you actually haven't seen, so maybe I lied there. Android.support.v4.widget.swipe refresh layout. And I'm going to go ahead and do an opening and closing tag in this. And as far as his parameters go, he's going to have a layout width of match parent, a layout height of match parent, and I'm going to give him an ID of, I'm just going to give him an ID of, let's see here. Well, the ID that I'm going to give this guy is going to be similar to our include toolbar. It's not going to be specifically scoped to this activity, so I guess I can just go ahead and give it an ID of swipe refresh, because we're going to be picking up on this ID inside of our base layout, our base activity, just like what we do with the toolbar. And I'm also going to specify that this should exist below the include toolbar. So that's why I added the ID include toolbar there, so we can have our swipe refresh layout appear below our main toolbar. Now inside of our swipe refresh layout, we're going to put in an android.support.v7.widget.recycler view, and I am going to have this be self-closing. And for him, I'm going to give him a height of wrap content, which is interesting there, and a width of match parent, and an ID of activity main recycler view. Okay, so maybe let's spell recycler correctly. Okay, so this swipe refresh layout is a really cool little super easy to use widget that allows you to just swipe down from the when you're scrolled up to the top, swipe down, and a little spinny guy will appear, and then when you release, it'll do a refresh. And in the case of the code, obviously it's not, we'll have to tell it what constitutes a refresh, but we'll add event handlers in for that control a little bit later. So yeah, that'll allow us to implement that. I just wanted to show you guys it's a cool little thing that kind of hangs out in the support libraries, or the support library that makes it very easy to implement that sort of UI. Okay, so now, why did I make this a relative layout instead of a linear layout? Well, I want to go ahead and I want to overlay a button on the lower right-hand side of the screen. So I'm going to hop out of the swipe refresh layout, and I'm going to open up an image button. Now, the image button is going to have a width and height of 46 dp. Now, of course, you're welcome to do put that value in your dimensions XML file or your values XML file and change it depending on how big the screen is, so that on tablets it appears bigger. But here we're just going to kind of cheat and put in 46 dp there. For the background, I am going to give it a drawable of round button. And then I'm going to give it a align parent bottom of true and align parent end of true, which puts it at the lower right-hand side. I'll go ahead and give it a margin end of 10 dp and a margin bottom of 10 dp just to offset it from the side a little bit. And I'm going to give it a source of drawable and icy action camera. And then I'm going to give it a padding of 5 dp, just to make it a little bit bigger like that. And then I'll give it an ID of new ID activity main new, or how about a new message button? Sure, why not? All right, so that is our activity main layout. We have our image button and we have a relative layout. Not too exciting. So what I want to do now is, again, I want this video to be just the little odds and ends that we need for odds and ends of the resources that we need for our activity main. So I'm going to jump into layout, and I'm going to create a new layout resource file. And what this guy is going to be, this is going to be a dialog underscore user underscore display. I want to have a custom dialog for when a user clicks on a contact request to pop up, and I want it to show the user name of that user they clicked on, as well as his avatar. So we're gonna implement a custom dialog, and to do that, the content that actually goes into the dialog is going to be what's here. So we're gonna give him a relative layout. Could have also given a linear layout, doesn't really matter. Then I can go ahead and inside of here do an image view with a 64 dp width and a 64 dp height. I'm going to give him an ID of dialog user display avatar, and I'm going to give him a margin end of 16 dp. Then I'll create a text view with a wrap content width and height. We're going to give him an ID of dialog user display name, because that'll be the display name. I'll give him a text of display name so we can see how he lines up. And you can barely see it all the way up there, but that should change while we work on some of the formatting here. And then I'm going to say to end of display avatar, so that'll push him to the right there. And I'm going to go ahead and say align top of the avatar, of display avatar, and align bottom of display avatar. Then I'm going to give his internal gravity to be center vertical. So now you see he appears in the middle of the avatar right there. And text size 14 SP, text style bold. I really should have turned this into a reusable style, shouldn't have I? Text color, and we'll do DE000000, and I think that's it. So what I want to, so basically I've shown you guys a bunch of different ways you could accomplish the creating a text view and an image view and aligning them like this. A bunch of different ways you can do aligning in Android. And you'll also notice that the image view is complaining at me, and one of the things it's going to be complaining about me with is, or might be, I don't know if it detected it or not, it would have if we used a linear layout, that the text views actually have drawable starts and drawable ends where we could have put the avatar in, but those require additional calculations of changing things in between device-independent pixels and whatnot. I find it easier and more flexible to not do it that way and have your own separate image view. It's not significantly less performant when you do it like this. Anyway, so let's go ahead and move on to a view holder. So our recycler view inside of our inbox is going to have two kinds of things inside of it. We've never seen an example of that before. And the two kinds of things that's going to have in it, well, actually technically three. It's going to have received contact requests. It's going to have messages, our inbox basically. And it's also going to have headers. So I want to go ahead and put together the view holders for the headers and the contact request view holder. And I'm going to follow the same pattern of what we did before with our message view holder. If you recall, our message view holder, he inherits from recycler view holder. He grabs all his view stuff, and then he has a method called populate, which takes in the data that needs to be populated for that. And so it's a kind of a standard sort of way that I write view holders when I'm using recycler views like this. So let's come up to the views package, and I'll select new class, and we'll just do header view holder. And he will, of course, inherit from recycler view.view holder. We'll remove that comment. And then we'll go ahead and we'll create a constructor by just hitting Alt enter, and then waiting, and waiting. There we go. And of course, all that did was create a constructor that invokes our super with item view. Well, I do kind of want to do something a little different here. I don't want them to take in a view. I want to show you guys another thing that you could do. Instead of having their view holders take in a view, you could give control of which layout to inflate to the view holder itself, so that concept is abstracted away from the adapter, which makes your code just a little bit more flexible, I think. So what we can do instead is we can accept an inflator and a view group parent. And then instead of saying super item view, we can say super inflator.inflate, And then we can pass in our resource. Now, the resource that I'm going to be passing in is going to be a standard resource. So I'm going to do android.r.layout, and I'm going to do simple list item 1. And then I'm going to be passing in parent and then false for its third parameter. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to say text view equals cast to text view item view dot find view by ID r or android dot r dot ID dot text 1, and then we'll go ahead and we'll create a field of text view, alias it out into a final field. Okay, so what's going on here? We're accepting a layout inflator, so we have control over what layout gets inflated. And the layout that we're inflating is the simple list item 1, which you guys should be familiar from when we looked at list views. It's basically the really simple view that just has one text view inside of it. Then what we do is we alias out the text view using the android.r.id.text1, which is the ID of that text view. Funny enough, the whole simple list item 1 is the text view. You can find out more about it by control-clicking on it and actually seeing the layout file itself. And you see we have a ID of text1 here for its text view. You'll notice also that I'm accessing this thing called item view. Item view actually happens to be a protected field of recyclerview.viewholder, or public field. And that's populated by what's passed into the constructor. But anyway, so now that we've done that, we can go ahead and implement our populate method. Now, our populate method isn't a method that comes from any sort of interface or anything like that, and it's specific to each view holder, but it's a nice little convention, I suppose. And our populate is just going to take in a string text for what we want the header to be. So then I'll say textView.setTextText. All right, let's go ahead and move on to the contact request view holder. So I'm going to come up here to my views package, create new contact request view holder.java, and he'll go ahead and he'll inherit from recyclerview.viewholder. And I'm going to go ahead and I guess generate the constructor, even though I'm going to change pretty much everything about it, because he's going to take in a layout inflator and a view group parent, just like what we did before. And then for the layout that we're going to be inflating, it's going to be do inflator.inflate r.layout.list item contact request. Now, of course, we'll have to hit Alt-Enter to import our R. And then we're going to pass in parent as the second parameter and false as the third. Now let's go ahead and alias out our controls. So I'm going to say display name equals cast a text view item view dot find view by ID r dot ID list item contact request display name, and then we'll say created at equals cast to text view item view find view by ID r dot ID list item contact request avatar or display name. I almost introduced a bug, or created at. Wow, that was impressively bad. And then we're going to do avatar equals cast to image view, item view, find view by ID, r.id, request avatar. All right, so now let's go ahead and create these fields. Just put your keyboard cursor on the red, hit Alt-Enter, hit down arrow, hit create field, hit enter again. Come down here, do the same thing here. Whoops. Do the same thing here, create field, and then create field. So now we have our three fields, and then I'm going to do a public void populate, which will take it a context, and a contact request, and then we're just going to do what we did before with our contact request adapter, except this is for the recycler view, not for a list view. So first we're going to set our display name to request.getUser.getDisplayName. Then we're going to go ahead and load in our avatar. So Picasso with context.load request get user get avatar URL into avatar. And then let's go ahead and get our created at text. So let's say date text equals date utils dot format date time. And for our parameters here, let's hit Alt-Enter to import that class. For our parameters, we're passing in context. We're going to pass in request get created at dot get time in millis, and we're going to pass in date utils dot format show date and date utils format show time. And I got both of those wrong pretty impressively too. So let's go ahead and fix these. And let's go ahead and throw in an underscore there. Alrighty, so now we have our date text. I'm going to say if request is from us, then I'm going to say created at .setText sent at date text. Otherwise, if it wasn't created by us, we'll do created at set text, and we're going to say received plus date text. Or received at, sure. And that's it. That's our contact request view holder. So now let's jump into, so go ahead and pause the video if you're still working on that. Otherwise, let's jump into our base activity and hook up our awesome swipe refresh layout guy. I'm going to have him be pulled into the activity at the base level so that if such a control exists on the current form, it'll be configured in that way. So what I'm going to do here is all the way at the top, I'm going to add a new protected swipe refresh layout, and I'm going to call this swipe refresh. And that's all the way at the top of the base activity there. Make sure to make him protected so that his children can see that field. Now what I'm going to do is just like what we did with our toolbar, I'm going to scroll down to our set content view. And just to be consistent here, I am going to add curlies on that, even though it doesn't matter. By the way, I usually don't put curlies on single line if statements. I do in Java code because I tend to find that that's more commonly the style. But when I'm writing in C# or other languages, I tend not to on single line if statements. Anyway, so I'm going to do swipe refresh equals cast to swipe refresh layout, find view by ID r.id swipe refresh. Now, if the swipe refresh is not null, I want to set some parameters on him. I'm going to say swipe refresh dot set on refresh listener. So the listener, the set on refresh listener, the refresh listener is the object that's going to be notified whenever the user kind of drags up and indicates the UI that he wants stuff to be refreshed. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to set up some default colors. I totally stole these colors from Google, but I tend to find that they look really good. So I'm going to say swipe refresh dot set color scheme colors. Now what this is part of the swipe refresh. It has this little spinny thing that changes color, and these are going to be the colors that get used for that spinny thing. So I'm going to put in 4 colors here that I shamelessly stole from Google. We'll do color.parseColor. We're going to do FF00DDFF. We'll do color parse color, and we'll do FF99CC00, and then color.parse. No, well, this wasn't even close. FFBB33. FFBB33. Oh, I'm missing the hash sign there. And then color parse color FFFF4444. And that's it. So now we have a particular color scheme, and you could also have acquired the color from a resource file as well. But I'm just trying to prevent jumping around as much as possible at this stage of the app. However, maybe a more flexible solution would have to use a values resource file. Okay, so the last thing I need to do in base activity is I need to put my keyboard cursor on the squiggles and hit Alt-Enter. And I'm doing that because the current base activity does not implement the onRefreshListener interface. So I'm just doing this, and then I'm going to select Make Base Activity Implement Swipe Refresh Layout to onRefreshListener, hit Enter, and then hit Enter. And now we have this override onRefresh method. So this onRefresh method, which we can override in the child classes, is going to be called whenever the user indicates that he wants to refresh the screen. Alrighty, so I think we've done pretty good. We got a lot of tiny little things out of the way, and I think we're ready to start really working on the main activity now that we have all the ancillary concerns finished with. So I think we'll start doing that in the next video. So we'll see you guys then.